Hey everyone, this is Cam Garrity. Welcome back to the Should Have Been a Phone Call. Today on the show, we have a super talented actress and musical theater performer, Mariah Rose Faith. You may know Mariah from her starring role as Regina George in the first national tour of the Mean Girls musical. She was also a member of Team Star Kid, which is the musical theater company founded by Darren Criss. And she's also been creating original content on YouTube for many years now. Mariah really has a way of bringing a song to life. There's a bunch of her performances that I've included in the show notes that you should absolutely check out. She's just an incredible performer. But we talk about her approach to bringing character and storytelling into her performances through song, as well as what it's really like to perform in a production 8 shows a week. The good, the bad, and even the fetch. Not even sorry about that. Contractually, I had to make that joke. Because we live in Buffalo, where the Mean Girls tour launched, my sister and I got to see some of the first performances. We were able to see it twice. Mariah and the entire cast were absolutely brilliant, of course, and I'm really honored that she was game to spend some time with me for this chat. This should have been a phone call with my Regina George, Mariah Rose Faith. We actually interacted before over TikTok. I do these videos as Kermit the Frog.
As Kermit, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, when you reached out to me, I was like, he seems so familiar. And then I was like, wait, we had this interaction. Yes, I totally remember.
Yeah. But I saw
Very
you
cool.
twice, actually, because my sister and I had bought tickets to see Mean Girls when you opened in Buffalo. And then we ended up winning the lottery for it, too. So we were able to see it.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was really cool. And like most people in Buffalo, anything that happens in Buffalo, we kind of take ownership of. So the fact that like Mean Girls premiered in our city, like was totally a point of pride there.
Yeah. I loved it. We all loved it. We loved starting in Buffalo. Also ate some of my favorite food on tour in Buffalo. And so it was like comparing all the good food afterwards. And I was like, still ain't Buffalo. Buffalo.
Well, and you're like right there, you know, because that theater being on Main Street and really in the heart of the city, there are just so many options that are just a stone's throw away there.
Yeah.
But how have you been? What have you been up to these days?
It feels like everything and nothing all at once. A lot of the pandemic's scary.
Yeah.
The pandemic has been very scary. I've definitely reevaluated my love for performing and my desire to perform during this time. And I've sat into that of like, you know what? Okay, I think like I don't necessarily want to be doing theater full time during a pandemic. And so I've focused a little bit more of my time on other things that like I went to school for. I went to school for film. So working on writing at the moment, doing streaming, and doing like a lot of auditions for film and TV stuff. So I've been honing my energy into that more so at the moment. Still singing, and there's been a few like theater auditions that have reached out for me, and I've done some of them, but I think I just am more like, I want to feel safe doing theater. Yeah. Theater is already so stressful, and I am so in awe of all the professionals who are doing it right now. I just know that for me, I'm like, you know what? I think I need to wait on that because it's scary right now. And I am an anxious person. Yeah. So I'm like, we got to take care of that because I want to perform to the capability that I know I'm able to do. And during the pandemic, I was like, I don't think I'd be able to give that. That's not fair to anybody.
No, and I just don't know how anybody, I have a couple friends who work on Broadway, and I don't know how they do it. I would be terrified. No. I mean, yes, they're checking vaccination status and for masks and everything, but whether you're in the house or on the stage, it just seems frightening to me.
Yeah, no, yes. I haven't gone to a show yet. I haven't done it. I did go to a concert.
I haven't gone to the movies.
I've gone to movies a couple of times, but not recently. And then I did get Omicron, you know, I did. And I was like, it was either from going to see Spider-Man or like, you know, or going to the store. Yeah. Like everything right now is just, it is what it is. But Yeah, I did go to one concert when things were really cooling down and there wasn't much going on. I can't even remember when that was now.
Like May or so? Yeah, May, June.
Yeah, and I felt very safe, and it was great, and it wasn't like a crazy concert anyway. It was, I don't know if you're familiar with City and Color, but Dallas Green, he's an artist, and he's like indie folk, you know, it wasn't like a crazy rager of a concert, but I was like, yeah, I would go see a theater show, not in this moment in time, not like this month.
Right.
Yeah, I've been a bit of a scaredy cat, but I got COVID now, so I think I got a little bit of immunity in me, maybe, hopefully.
But the film stuff is great. Are you hoping to be like on camera versus behind the camera, or a little bit of both?
Definitely both. I went to film school for directing, but to be a director, you have to be a very patient person. And I love it. And I do think that like it is a gift of mine that I have felt my whole life, but there's still a part of me that I'm like, I'm not in that phase yet, and that's okay. But I also went to school for screenwriting, which I want to get back into. I do have some finished screenplays that I would love to continue re-editing and try to pitch to studios and pitch to producers. But yeah, I'm hoping right now more the acting side. I think like I just haven't gone for it in my life as much as I wish I have. And I live in Los Angeles, and I have a great manager who believes in me and is pushing me for very exciting big things. And I'm like, okay, there's no reason why it can't be meant for me, is like my new motto, instead of looking at myself like I'm just a random little theater kid. It's like, well, no, like I have been acting my whole life. I do have an education in this, and I can be deserving of these exciting roles that I care about. So yeah, that's
Totally.
that's more it at the moment.
You're Regina George, and you're a massive deal.
I try. But yeah.
And so I know you mentioned that singing is maybe slightly on a back burner. But what's the process of kind of maintaining your vocal cords so that when, you know, Spielberg calls for West Side Story 2 or what have you, like how do you keep them cut without, you know, you're not in a production right now, so you're maybe not as fit in that way as you might be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So my full-time like job at this moment in time is actually vocal coaching. And so it has helped me so much stay at it in my own voice, so that like if Wicked called me tomorrow and went, we don't have anyone, Mariah, but you're on our list for Alpha Buzz because you had a callback one time. It's like, I think I could do the show, which sounds cocky as fuck.
Yeah.
But I promise I couldn't do it for a week. You know, I'm not in that area right now, but my voice is trained enough. I rested enough. I do sing every day. And the coaching reminds me the technical stuff that I have to work on while I'm working with other people. And that's been like not just a physical gift to be able to stay in training, but it's also been like a mental gift to work with people during this time and help people feel more confident in their abilities as well.
Right.
So yeah, I've just been at it.
Yeah, because if you're not listening to your own advice that people are paying for,
I know, right?
It's like, oh, maybe
yeah. Exactly. Maybe I gotta rethink some stuff.
Right.
No, it's actually so good. And especially I've really worked on like a clear roster of students, and I have some 15, 16-year-olds, but a lot of people I work with are in their early 20s or mid 20s who have fuller developed voices that apply to mine. You know, some of the things I'm saying to them really do apply to the same things I have to hear. So it's been super, super beneficial. And now living with my boyfriend, who's also very musical, we have like a whole section in our living room that is just has all of our instruments and stuff. And so I'm like, oh great, we're gonna be singing even more and keeping everything on our toes. So I'm very thankful that I keep at it, but it's hard. It's very hard sometimes to sing.
Right. Well, yeah, gosh. And especially someone who was on the show before had an analogy of like gym buddies. She was talking about, you know, getting out of bed to take care of her kids. And if you just need to get on the treadmill yourself, that's really difficult. But if you have like your trainer is at the gym, you have friends who are there who also got up, it's easier to be like, okay, I'm going to do this. So you have your gym buddies in a way between your boyfriend and your students.
It's so true. It's so true. I am so much more motivated to do anything with the slight thought in my head that it's like, someone's waiting for me, or someone's relying on me, or someone would love to do this with me. It's like, oh, okay, I could do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does so much.
Is there a TV show that you remember growing up not particularly liking, but just having it on in the background, almost as like white noise as
Oh
you
my
were
God.
playing and doing other things?
Yes. So I spent most of like my weekdays in my childhood at my cousin's and my grandma's house, and they didn't have a lot of cable. They had like 10 channels, but one of them was PBS Kids.
Sure.
And so everything on PBS Kids was like Arthur and like all of those shows, Cyber Chase, like all these educational shows that were on PBS Kids would always be on in the background all the time. It was like the schedule of PBS throughout the day that would then go into nighttime, adult PBS, and I'd be like, get this off. But that's also when I would like usually get picked up by my parents.
Who the hell is Charlie Rose?
I'm like, I don't know this man. I never met this man in my life. Get back Arthur the Aardvark. Like, bring back my friend. Yeah, I think those were the biggest. Also, like, there would always be, because they did have, I think it was like 4Kids TV that had all the Saturday morning, like, anime, like Digimon, Pokemon, Dragon Ball Z, Power Rangers. Those were also very big background shows, except I was paying attention during Digimon and Pokemon. Like, that was, my eyes were like, we gotta know what's going on.
I'm here
These
for
are my
this.
people.
Yes.
Yeah, as I wear a Bulbasaur sweatshirt right now.
It's
I wonder
Bulbasaur
what
Community
Mariah's
Day,
into.
right?
Yes, exactly. You know I know it. You know I know it.
Love it. Are there any expressions or words from TV or movies that you grew up with, which you find yourself using as an adult?
I am that bitch who has quoted SpongeBob her entire life.
Uh-huh.
Like, I will always do random SpongeBob quotes, and thank God my boyfriend is also that person. And probably the most of the people in my life, except for, like, a couple of my friends who are, like, I'm 26, and I have some friends who are, like, 22. And there's certain things they don't know in these quotes, and I'm always like, it's, like, jarring to me. I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean you don't know this SpongeBob quote?
It's like you're asking them about, like, how a record player works or something.
Right. No, literally, yeah. And they're like, and it's so sad because they feel like they should know. And I'm like, it's okay, sweet baby.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know these. You're not that much younger than me, but how old are you, Cam?
I just turned 31.
Amazing.
But I have a sister who's your age.
So there's a lot of stuff.
There's a lot of overlap, and I have a sister your
There's...
age, so I watched a lot of the stuff that she was watching. So I kind of have that extended tale of understanding.
Yes, absolutely. I'm the same way because even with my friends who are younger, my brother is 8 years younger than me.
Okay.
And so, which just seems similar to like you and your sister's age difference. And so it's like you see the shows that they're watching on TV, even when you sometimes outgrow them. It's like, here I am having to view this thing and watch this thing. But it's just crazy. Like, even generationally, I would say like you being 31, me 26, my boyfriend is 28. There's still a lot of overlap in the stuff that we watch. It's like the pre-iPhone.
Right.
Folks,
right?
Like the anything like that, like AOL, AIM, like these were big for us, you know, like, so I think there is more overlap that we have than even like a 22-year-old right now and an 18-year-old right now. They have completely different things that they grew up with because technology alone.
Well, and right down to, I mean, it's going to be like, you know, the people who are playing Flappy Bird versus Angry Bird.
Yeah. You know, oh my God.
It's going to be that razor thin.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
That's so true.
But yeah, okay, so SpongeBob quotes, definitely I'm here for that.
Yeah.
Are there other things too that like, for me, I'll give an example. There's the carriage scene from The Princess Diaries where Mia and her grandmother hit the trolley and they're trying to like figure out, you know, a way to get out of it. And Julie Andrews deputizes the two guys. And there's a way she says, I understand completely. That's just like seared in my brain. And even when I say like at work to someone, I understand. And then I'll kind of like under my breath be like, I understand completely. Because it's like a weird compulsive thing of like, I just have to finish that off. But do you have anything like that?
Yeah, to circle back to Digimon.
Sure.
The Digimon movie was a big part of my childhood, as was the Princess Diaries films. But the Digimon movie I loved. Also fantastic soundtrack. If you haven't listened, if you don't know Digimon, to anyone listening right now, doesn't matter. Go listen to that soundtrack. It's so good. But there's one character in it. It's not even like a cute moment, but he says like, I'm going to sound so creepy, but it's like a Digimon. He's like, go back to the beginning. And anytime someone says go back, in my head, I'm always like, back to to the beginning. Like, always. And no one knows that quote because it's this random niche quote from the Digimon movie, but I will always, like, say it in correspondence to that.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because, like, obviously moments like these resonate with enough people that, like, TikTok is a thing, right? I mean, because how much of that is just, like...
These audio trends.
Totally. And I mean, to say that, like, you know, this whole Elmo Rocco thing that just happened is, like, that's a almost a 15-year ago thing.
Yes.
Like, and it's just...
Elmo...
Okay.
The Elmo comedic renaissance is my favorite thing going on right now.
It's wild. So another random question. Do you remember the first time that you got caught in a lie?
It's important for you to know, Cam, that I never lie. It's one of my big, big anxious things.
Okay.
And my parents, ever since I was a kid. And, like, I wasn't caught in this lie because I would always get caught in lies if I'd lied about, like, brushing my teeth. But that was the only thing I'd, like, lie about as a kid. I've never had anything big moment, but I remember one time in probably first grade, we'd get, like, these cards that we'd bring back from school. Like, a green card meant you were great that day. Yellow card meaning you had a warning. Red card was you did bad. You were not a good little kid that day. And I was a green card student through and through. And one day I was just a little too chatty and I got the yellow card, and I remember being on the bus and having a panic attack as a 7-year-old, and folding it up and putting it in the seat and telling my grandma, who, like, picked me up from the bus stop, being like, yeah, I lost my card today. Isn't that so sad? And she wouldn't have even asked me about my card. Like, no one gave a shit about my card. But I was like, yeah, I missed it. I lost it. And that haunted me. I, like, couldn't sleep that night because I lied about getting a warning at school. So I am a big truther for anxiety's sake, and I also just think lying is shitty.
Sure.
So I also just don't like to do it. But yeah.
Was the anxiety thing just something that's always been there for you? Can you connect it to any kind of starting point in the beginning?
No. It's always been so bad. But I do think that I mean, I'd had anxiousness over stuff like that, and I would have, like, little baby panic attacks. But a big thing that I connect it to is I've always had a lot of, like, health stuff, particularly in my gut and digestive stuff. And I'd get so anxious about getting sick.
I'm a Crohn's guy.
Look at you! My best friend is a Crohn's girl, and I have severe IBS. We love it. Yeah, I've always had it. I literally had it as a baby. I had colic? Yeah, colic, which is also digestive stuff, terrible, awful. And so a lot of my anxiety would just be like, am I going to get sick? Am I going to get sick? I just want to have fun with friends or family. I don't want to feel sick all the time. And then that would make me more anxious. So literally, unfortunately, my entire life, but also fortunately in the sense of just, like, I don't know any different. The different that I have been starting to know is just older being on meds and being like, oh, something that used to make me have a panic attack just makes me kind of, like, I just think about it a little longer instead of panicking about it. But yeah, forever, the whole time.
Yeah. Were you aware of the fact that having those intestinal issues was something that, like, not everybody else had?
No. I did not realize that it was, like, it wasn't this thing until it was starting to affect, like, hanging out with friends and doing things, because I would just be like, I have a tummy ache, I feel nauseous, I have a tummy ache, I feel nauseous, and no one else was feeling that. And then there's that, like, people starting to doubt you. Yeah. And just like, Mariah's always sick, Mariah always feels this way, and then being like, I am literally not trying to. I would love to not feel this way that I'm feeling most days out of the week.
And you get that guilt too of, like, sometimes if there was, like, an event that you had to go to that you didn't really want to, or there was that test that you hadn't quite studied for, and your stomach kind of is like your wingman for a second. Like, it does you the solid of being able to get out of it, but that almost stresses you out more because it perpetuates that, oh, she's just faking it.
Right. Yes.
And it's like, no, it also happened on my birthday. So, like, let's pump the brakes.
Every birthday of my life, stomachache, sick. And even now, hilariously, I know I'm an actor. I hate being the center of attention. I hate when people are focused on me because I feel like I'm like, no, I can do wrong things. Like, don't focus on me. Birthdays always were a sense of stress and feeling sick. And that's a really great point to where it's like, no, if this is all an act, why is this happening on the day that it should be all about me? Like, and all about good and celebration. Yeah, my mom brought this up to me probably a year ago, maybe even less, and it totally made me cry because it's so wonderful. But there was a time when I was invited to a show, like a theater show, I don't even remember what it was now, with friends, and it was like a day trip and all of this stuff, and I think maybe a sleepover. Sleepovers were super hard for me for the longest time, and as we're driving there to go, for no reason that I remember, I just started getting anxiety about doing it, and then it made me feel super sick, and I was in the car, and I was like, Mom, I can't go. Like, I can't go. And she's like, they've paid for this ticket. It was expensive. Like, you need to go. And I was like, Mom, I can't get out of the car. I was probably like 12, so we're older now. Right. And I'm like, Mom, I can't. But it was also, and it's still bad, but a very different time of understanding anxiety back then.
Yeah.
And she called me and I didn't go. I was like, I can't physically get out of the car. And when I talked to her about this recently, she fully just like apologized to me and was like, I'm so sorry that back then I didn't understand what that was doing to you and how debilitating it was to you, and how when you said I can't get out of the car, you meant it. Like, your body could not get out of the car. But also, that was early 2000s and we're in 2022 now, and there's a lot more understanding, and she's seeing it in my younger brother. And so there is more of this like, oh wow, like these parallels that she has a better understanding of now. And at the time, you don't really know either because no one is telling you what's going on with you. Like, I was diagnosed with anxiety disorder when I was like 7, and we didn't do anything, but my parents took me to therapy sometimes, like that's all people knew what to do.
For sure. No, and you kind of like, oh, well, we'll try to keep them away from things that might stress them out. It's like, it could be anything. Yeah. It could be anything.
It's anything. Yeah. Yeah. Especially when you're a child.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, and then pre-puberty and all these things, it's like, no, everything is literally stressful. And there's no avoiding it.
Right.
It just is.
One more random question and we'll get to the interview meat. What's a fictional character that you found yourself most empathizing with in your adult life?
Recently, I think my number one kin at this time. I'm a huge Attack on Titan fan. I love it. God, and we're talking about all my nerdy stuff right now.
Is that an anime?
It is. It's an anime.
Okay.
Yes. Eren from Attack on Titan, I absolutely just identify with so much because he's one of those characters. He's like a leader mentality, which I don't always feel like I am. I feel like I get put into those positions rather than choosing to be put in them, which is very similar to this character. And then he's just very good at it and cares about people so much, but he also cares about lore. Like, he just really wants to know the reasons behind everything, and they're a little bit of his motivation for life, even though he won't say that. But they are. Like, it's like, I'm alive right now because I want to know what all of this is about. And I do feel like that's my core, like that little cinematic bitch. Like, that is me. And I was watching him on, like, when I was watching the series for the first time, and I was like, I care about him so much. And then I was like, oh, he's my heart. Mm-hmm. Like, that's, and then also Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy. Completely. And then childhood unto now, Meg from Hercules, I just feel like is my soul with like a Hades Rising.
I can see the Megra energy there.
Like, that's my victory. Yeah, she's definitely, she exists in me very loudly.
Can you tell me a little bit about Team Star Kid? Because I see that's something that you were a part of, but I'd never heard of it before.
What?
Really?
No. Oh my God.
Is it kind of like the Broadway Kids?
No.
Okay.
Well, wait, what's Broadway Kids?
It was a series of albums and tours. I'm trying to think. I know Christy Carlson Romano was a part of it.
What?
Hold on, I have an album here. Hold on, let me grab it real quick.
Yes, I need to know.
Okay, so this was one of my first CDs that I ever had. It said it was
Oh my
produced
God.
in 1997. I'm not sure if you can see.
Oh my
This was
God.
Broadway Kids at the Movies.
Okay, I was only 2 years old.
Yeah. And so they would cover, it was kind of like Kids Bop, but for Broadway and television.
Yes.
So this is them singing like, Talk to the Animals, Can You Feel the Love Tonight? You've Got a Friend in Me.
That's beautiful.
It was one of my favorite albums growing up.
Yes.
Yeah, but so anyway, sorry, Team Star Kid, is that
So
anything?
it's not at all.
Okay. And I
It's
apologize if it
completely
was
different.
like
No.
not even
It is not even close, but it's hilarious that it's not close at all.
great.
Because Star Kid, we got a lot of swear words and a lot of raunchy comedy going on.
Oh wow,
in
okay,
Team
yeah.
Starkid. So not
Would have
even
made the
close.
Broadway kids blush, most likely.
It would have. It would have. So I am one of the newer members of Team Star Kid, one of the babies of the group. I am one of the youngest. But it was formed at U of Michigan by some of the actor musical theater kids there, and they started with a Harry Potter musical. So that's what really took them off. They're the ones who did that with Darren Criss. And they started off doing more parody productions. And now it's all original material. And my first show I did with them was a show called The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals, which takes place in their current like theatrical universe called Hatchetfield. It's basically a show about this guy who hates musicals, but then this apocalyptic event happens where aliens take over and make everybody musical theater people singing all the time.
Excellent.
And the whole world's a musical. Yeah. I love it. I think it's brilliant. I was thrilled to be a part of it. And since then, I've been able to do as much as possible. Their sequel show, Black Friday, I was originally cast in, but then they knew I was in callbacks from Mean Girls the whole time. And I was like, guys, I might not be able to do this. And they're like, we're still going to announce you. And I'm like, okay. And then I got Mean Girls and they were like, well, but the role I was playing was recast by my friend Angela, who was brilliant for it, and now I've made a beautiful friend of the person who ends up playing the role that I was cast in. Who
Even better.
Yes, right? And it was one of those theater magic things where I saw her do it, and I was like, oh my god, this role was definitely written for me in mind, but it was meant for you. Like, it was theater magic. But that's Stark. It's a collective of people started by people from U of Michigan, I think in 2010? No, because I did do their 10-year anniversary concert, and that was hilarious because I had only been with them for 1 year. And I was like, I loved being at U of Michigan when I was 13 years old. Like, really great stuff. But yeah, that's Starkid, and they're still going strong, and everyone's so talented and working actors in film and TV. There's also Broadway actors who come back and do stuff with them. It's a wild collective of people and artists. No,
that's so great. So that was really then your stepping stone in a way to Mean Girls?
No.
Okay.
But it was definitely my stepping stone in a way to experiencing fans in that sort of world. I had followers and people because I've been doing YouTube for a very long time, but it was never insane, and I underestimated the Star Kid fandom. It is huge. It is loud. They are beautiful. And that was wild. But I did Guy Didn't Like Musicals in October of 2019 and January 2020. I got my first Mean Girls callback. They had like no correlation, but they were happening at the same time. Okay. Sort of thing. Which is weird because I think some people, there is that thought of like, oh, Star Kid got you, that sounds vague, but it's like the idea of like, got you Mean Girls. And it's like, actually, no, I got like my first Mean Girls audition because of a YouTube video I did singing World Burn. So oh, wow. Anything can happen. Anything is possible. Yeah.
Tina Fey just sliding into your DMs there.
No, literally. Tina and Jeff saw it and they told one of the casting directors, and casting slid into my Instagram DM. And I was like, am I being punked? I had to look up her LinkedIn to make sure that it was real.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's wild. So, but I imagine you weren't like fast tracked from that, right? Like you still had to go through rounds and rounds of callbacks.
It was like 9 months. Yeah. Because it was for Broadway and tour. They were like considering me for both. Okay. Broadway placement and tour. And yeah, I can't remember if I've talked to Renee about this, but I saw her at one of the callbacks. I met a lot of people there. I met Danny, who plays Katie. I met Olivia, who was the swing for Janice and Katie in Adult Women, and then was the Janice replacement. I met Megan for the first time, who was my Gretchen. I met a lot of people at these extended rounds of callbacks. Yeah, it was a long journey, which is hilarious because I saw something or someone told me, I can't remember, Nadina, who was my replacement on tour. I guess I don't remember who told me this, but her process, because it was like I said no to coming back and things were happening so fast, I think she just had like a 1 month
Oh my God.
experience of like, and I was like, I had a whole pregnancy. Like, and I can't tell which is harder. Both of those are so hard to be like zooming in or a long time of waiting. Like a 3-month process, chef's kiss.
Mm-hmm.
That would be beautiful. Right in the middle.
Yeah, it's the sweet spot.
Yep.
But so how, explain to me that process a little bit of making a character like that your own, right? Because you're the one on stage, you're the one doing it, but there's potentially the baggage of like wanting to do it in a way that is true to how Taylor did it first on Broadway, and more so doing it, you know, in a way that is true to the movie itself, which people are maybe more familiar with. Like, how much of that is in your, I'm sure none of it's in your head in the moment when you're on stage, but certainly leading up to that.
Yeah.
How do you process all of that and contextualize it all?
It was a lot. Thankfully, actually, I didn't see the show until I was cast. Okay. And that was great. So I didn't have, and I wasn't like thinking like, oh, Taylor does this here or she does this here, into like my callback process of what I was doing.
Had you had heard the soundtrack though?
Oh yeah. Okay. I knew all the songs and I knew all of that. And so I knew vocally what she did, but not her acting choices. Yeah. To where when I did see the show, I got to see her after I booked it. And I was like, oh my God, I was doing everything so different from her, which, you know, those thoughts of like honoring her and honoring Rachel McAdams, who I love so much. Casey Nicola, our director, said to me, he was like, I don't want you to be either of them. You know, like we cast you because of what you were doing as Mariah in this role. And I was like, oh, okay. And I really started to form my version of Regina, how she would exist in my body, which some people really, really loved and some people did not like, which I understand. When you're not the original person playing the role, there's always going to be like, oh, I like how they did it, or I like to, you know, because that's what they know. And it's also just might be the thing that they like how it's portrayed, which is totally fine. And the beautiful thing about musical theater is a bunch of people are going to play the same roles and they're all going to be different. And most of them are going to be correct, you know, if they stay true to the text. But yeah, I really let myself, after Casey said that to me, I really let myself just be free in that and let her become who she was becoming. And, you know, there is like the sad part of not being able to say goodbye to the role after the time off, because I was thinking about, you know, how I wanted her to grow and certain changes that I wanted to make that I think would have been better. I also got older, you know, and you get older playing something and you just have more time to ruminate in the character and think of choices. But yeah, it was definitely a balancing act of staying true to the text, staying true to me, and honoring the incredible women who've played her before me. So yeah.
Have you watched the show? It's a Canadian miniseries called Slings and Arrows.
Mm-mm.
So it actually, coincidentally, it stars Rachel McAdams in the first season.
Oh,
but it's a comedy based off of the Stratford Festival in Canada, where they're doing Shakespeare and putting on new shows. And it's this depiction of how a show gets made, how the art versus commerce thing happens. And in that first season where they're staging Hamlet, a celebrity from America comes up to Canada to play Hamlet and gets cast in this role that he like. It's kind of like when we see any kind of actor from Hollywood get cast, that it's kind of like, oh, you're going to see him in the show. But there's a scene when he's really apprehensive about the to be or not to be monologue. And the director says to him, like, well, what's your apprehension? And he says, well, when I say it, they're not going to see me saying those words. They're going to see every other great performer who has done this job. And to watch him shed himself of that in the 5-minute scene or whatever on screen is really powerful. And it must, when you guys are able to get into that headspace when you're on stage, of you and the person playing Katie and just everyone being able to shed that and be yourselves, being those characters, has to be this wonderful kind of alchemy.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great point too, because we're also, it's not even stepping into the roles that were made iconic by the Broadway performers in the original cast. They're also iconic characters that most people know. You know, you say Regina George and most people on the street are going to go, yeah, from Mean Girls.
Right.
You know who that is. And it's like very similar to when I said, like, what's the line of like, you're like really pretty. So you agree? You think you're really pretty?
Yeah.
You know, it's
I was
like
going to say,
that,
talk about quotable media.
Right. And it's all these things where people are like, they're saying the lines, you know, they're doing that as like, is butter a carb? You know, all of these things ring true. And a lot of people remember how Rachel McAdams said these lines. And so it's like, when I say them differently, some people go, oh, I like that. Or some people are like, oh, you know,
Yeah.
like, what? No. And that's okay. That's a natural, both are reactions that are totally valid.
Right.
Yeah.
I wonder too, you talked about getting older in that role, and this isn't unique to Mean Girls. You know, at a certain point, people grow up and they, you know, you can't always play Tiny Tim in A Christmas Carol.
No.
Soon enough, it's time to play Bob Cratchit. But the thing that I love about the Mean Girls musical is it's so body positive in its messaging. You know, the idea of everyone being a star, no matter who you are or what you look like. But I couldn't help think of the discrepancy there of like needing to find someone who looked like Regina George to be able to share that message, if that makes sense. I wasn't sure if that was something that you guys ever talked about or struggled with or anything like that, just because, and maybe that's just acting and show business in general, but it had to be, again, a lot of pressure to look like that every night.
Yeah. I am someone who definitely struggles with body image issues and other heavy topics within that realm, and I've struggled my whole life with those sort of things. And I know for me personally, you know, I sing the line of like, and I never weigh more than 115. When I weighed 115 in my life, I was not in a healthy place. And that was hard to sing at first. And I remember changing the narrative of going, okay, I don't weigh 115. And people in the audience, some people might be thinking that of like, no, she doesn't. And I was like, that's scary. And this and that. And I went, you know what? I'm playing a character that's very insecure, who's going to lie about her weight. And she struggles with her weight also the entire show.
Yep.
And there's a lot of reflection on there to me in my own life. And I mean, I have gained weight during this time since being in the show. 1, from starting meds, and 2, from being in a pandemic. And I remember having that fear of like, I weigh 15 pounds more than I did when I was doing the show. What am I going to do? I'm not going to fit into my tight costumes. I'm not going to this and that. And I did remember taking a step back and going, well, I've only had wonderful experiences with the production team of Mean Girls and everyone involved. And I don't think that they would care, you know, because Regina George, even though there's so much about it that's like image, why she is who she is the power that she holds and the confidence that she holds it in. And because I weigh more than I did before, even when I was struggling about my image before, it won't matter if I go onto that stage with the power that this character has. But that's a narrative you have to repeat to yourself all the time, because it's very easy to get stuck in it. I remember like, this is so dark and I don't want it to like affect, my standby English is one of my favorite people in the entire world. We were a team and it was like, thank God to have her every night. My first show, my only show of this happened where I had to call out mid-show because I got sick and I could not continue on. I remember seeing a tweet that, of course, there's always a comment where someone says of like, oh, and it's a mean thing about English too. I'm not going to read the thing that they said about that, but they said about me, they were like, oh, but this new Regina is hotter than the other one. And there's something you see in that where it's like, I do think my friend is absolutely stunning and gorgeous. I hate that people are comparing our bodies and how we look. And as much as a body positivity show that this is, it's also, you think about this stuff the entire time because we are dealing with high schoolers and we are dealing with like judgment. And hopefully people walk away from it with the message that it has, which is the celebration of everybody. But, you know, there's always going to be people that don't give a shit and are cruel. But, you know, comments like that are the ones that you walk away with and go, damn, I'm going to be thinking about this all week. And I don't want to just try and fit into these jeans. I want to look great in these jeans, you know? And I think that is a bigger topic that has to deal with just the industry and the Broadway, quote unquote, Broadway body in general, and that idea and how false and gross it is. But people are stuck in their ways, and it's a way that has to be broken, and that's going to take time and conversations. But yeah, it was really hard. In summary,
sure.
It was really hard.
No, and I appreciate you being so open about that, because yeah, God, I mean, it's hard enough to be doing 8 shows a week when you don't know what city you're in, let alone to then get like angry fans coming at you while you're trying to decompress. I mean, it only makes me, and I'm sure anybody who's listening, like more grateful for what you were putting out there every night.
Yeah. I think there's a lot, and not just in my experience, but like any performer's experience with a schedule like this, or just a difficult schedule in general in performing. There is so much that's happening off stage, and there's going to be nights that aren't people's best performance nights. And someone could have an argument with that and going, well, then they shouldn't be having that job. And it's like, I promise you, there's no human that's a superhuman that can avoid any of these offstage experiences and be totally fine. Yeah. That you'd have to be a robot. So it's like, no, they do deserve their jobs. It's just a really hard job, and it would be a hard job for anybody. But it's easier said when you're not doing it than when you are experiencing it.
For sure. But also, like, you shoot right back at them, like, hey, you know, did you get all your reports done on time, Jorgensen? Like, come on. Throw me a freaking bone here. You weren't perfect at your job either.
Yeah. And no one is. And it's just, I think with actors, performers, artists in general, it's almost like, and I don't want to compare it to people in the service industry because they get treated like absolute garbage. It's not the same. But there are parallels in the sense of like, you're working for me. You know, like you're there to entertain me. Right. And if this performance isn't perfect, then why did I spend so much money on this? And it's like, well, again, this isn't a television show where we stop and we say cut and we do it again. Like everything's live, and it's like if you're watching like a bodybuilding competition, like we're using our whole bodies. This is fitness. This is a whole fitness experience. We're doing a marathon every night, sometimes twice in one day. So it's just, there's a reason why certain roles don't, like physically can't do 7 shows a week and they have their standby do one of the performances. It's because the body simply can't handle that.
I wanted to shift a little bit away and just talk about your approach with musical acting in general. And you've had some great content on TikTok where you kind of talk about the fact that you can't just sing out there, right? Like you need to be in the head of your character. I'll link it in the show notes, but you had done a couple months ago now at this point, you sang on your Instagram page, You'll Be Back from Hamilton. And it like totally, while still being true to that role in that moment in the show, there was something in your performance that recontextualized that in just this amazing way. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about making a song your own and being able to, you're just singing the same notes as Jonathan Groff or whoever else is in that role. What's the process of breaking it down and being able to claim that ownership of it and tell your own story?
First of all, thank you.
Oh my
I
God.
really appreciate
Thank
that.
you. No, it's
I
phenomenal.
would love to play King George.
Yeah.
I don't know why they haven't called me yet. It's really weird.
I mean, we'll send this to Lynn. We'll send this to Lynn. Make it
Lynn,
happen.
it's me. It's me, your girl. We've had so many 1 degrees of separation for so many times. I don't know when it will be when I finally meet Lynn, but I'm sure it'll be pure magic. But he definitely doesn't know who the fuck I am. But, it's fine. It's fine. I tell my students this all the time. We're doing musical theater. Like, you're not just singing. You're not just acting. They both have to live together for it to be true. That's what this is. And I have certainly had times on my worst days, and I'm sure you can find bootlegs of them, of me and Mean Girls being like, this girl is wiped, and she is just singing right now. Happens. But you have to remember, like, it's almost one of those, like, this sounds so silly, but it's like, remember the words that you're singing. Like, you aren't just hitting notes. You're not just singing notes. Like, you are telling a story right now with feelings behind them. I know that's so like, put so aggressively and simply, but it is true. And there's so much detail behind that. It's great when you can find a role and you can find a song that you don't have to remind yourself that over and over, that, like, what the point of this song is. And that's why, like, I swear by your book of songs that you go into auditions have to be ones that you love. Don't sing shit just because someone told you sound good at it, because you're not going to perform that in a way that's
right.
Bluntly, it's probably not going to be memorable. People are able to tell if you're not having a good time or if you're not feeling it. So I think, like, I have really honed in on singing songs and going for roles that are going to excite me, because I'm not going to give the performance that's true and exciting and genuine if I'm not feeling it. There have been a couple shows in LA in the last year where I was like, oh yeah, I would go for this equity show and stay at home. And there was one, I'm not going to say the show because I will get so much hate, but I truly was like, I would go for this role in this show, and I'm sitting there and I'm working on the material, and I'm like, I don't like this. And it doesn't feel like me. And so I didn't go out for it, because, like, someone's going to be able to play it that it is them. And then I would just be doing it because it's a job. And I don't do theater because it's a job. I do theater because I love theater. And I love performing.
If you wanted a job, you'd do something much easier than theater.
Oh my God. Yeah, I would do something much easier physically, mentally, that pays more most of the time, is, like, reliable on its pay. So, no. But I think, like, that's so important to before you sing a song, before you look at the role, just remember, who am I right now? Who is singing this? Because and this gets so locked in, especially younger people in their teens and early 20s and, like, theater schools. There's that need to just sound good. You just, like, want to sound good so bad. And I'm like, I don't give a shit how good you sound if you are just standing there singing. Because I'll tell you what, when you get far in the industry and you're going to Broadway callbacks, everybody sounds good. Everybody sounds fantastic. So it doesn't have anything to do with that anymore. Now it has to do with what you are bringing with that sound, because I promise everyone already has that. But, like, some of the best performances I've ever seen have not been from the, like, quote unquote technically strongest singers. It's because they're giving everything that they have, and they're passionate about the words that are coming out of their mouth, and they're passionate about the melody that they're feeling and that we're hearing. So it's just ignite that excitement and recognize if you don't feel it, because that's also not your fault. If a character just doesn't register with you, we don't have to fit every single role. You know, we're not all Meryl Streep. And that's okay. Like, we don't all have to be. And I'm sure there are roles Meryl Streep's like, this is a beautiful role. I don't want to play it because I don't feel connected to it. And that shows the ownership and, like, the respect that she has, not just for herself as a performer and an artist, but her respect towards everyone else who's working on that material. It goes so much farther than just playing a part. It really does. Period.
For sure. And if you think about one of the artists who I really admire is Howard Ashman, and to hear the way that he would talk about the songs in a musical being like the pillars that hold up a house, and how they move you from one part of this story to the next. And, like, by the end of a song, you better have learned something, you better have felt something, because it is swinging you from one place to the next. And you don't get that by just hitting those notes, right?
Nope.
I'd rather you not hit as many notes perfectly, but make me feel.
Yeah. I'm here to feel shit. Yeah. You know, like, I have seen some performances of people who I'm sure, like, you know, you see people having an off night, especially when you are an actor and you are in this field and you're like, oh, I can tell they're vocally tired because you hear it because you felt it. But they're still giving. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, I notice it right at right at the top. Like, my ear will go, ooh, they sound a little tired. And then I forget it 2 seconds later because of what they're doing on stage. Like, no one cares. And probably most people don't even notice. We just notice because it's like, this is our job too.
Yeah, you
and
have
so
the
I
ear for
innately
it.
hear these things.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So I think and that's important to remember as a performer too, of just like, no one cares as much as you think they do. And if they do, then fuck them. Like, why are they so angry? Go make a sandwich.
Yeah.
Like, well, come on.
What's something about your life right now that you think your past self would be proudest of?
Oh, my mental health. Completely. I think I'm at like the best place mentally I've ever been in my entire life. And that's just been on me doing things that actually make me happy and surrounding myself with people who make me feel good to be me, which definitely didn't do for most of my life. And I'm still quite young, but I'm a big advocate for mental health and having those conversations just because it's what I've known my whole life. And there's been some very dark times and some very beautiful times, but I think it's so important to be at a good place mentally so that you can do the things that you love to the best of your ability. So that where I know right now, if I were to get hired to do a movie or do a show, I'd probably do something in LA before I'd go back to New York just because I just moved. But I would be ready just because like I'm mentally in the place to do so. And when I was like asked to come back for tour again, as we all were, I was ready to do it mentally. I realized I couldn't do it mentally not having a real day off because our days off would be travel days. And that was already hard to do when we were staying in places for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And so we did have a day off.
Yeah.
But I was just like, you know what? I'm growing so much in this place right now. And I knew that to no one's fault, just circumstantially, like of just our schedule, that would take me back and I wouldn't be able to perform in the way that I wanted to and knew I could. And that was a very hard and terrifying decision to make, but I feel so great about doing it because I have continued since making that decision huge strides in my mental health to where, yeah, I feel very ready for my next big task and big thing to do that takes most of my time and most of my energy. Yeah, I think my younger self would like be in complete awe of how I'm doing, which is really, that makes me very emo.
What's something that people think is easy about what you do in theater and in musicals that is actually really challenging?
I think kind of backtracking a little bit, I think the thing that is the most challenging is when you're doing a show 8 times a week and doing the exact same show, it's keeping it fresh. Like it's very hard. I did Mean Girls over 200 times. And I think Taylor Louderman said something about this too at one point, but it's like after the 75th time, you know, you kind of go, all right, I'm doing the same thing over and over again. How do I make this, it sounds awful, but as exciting as it was? Because it's still challenging. It's still very hard. It's always going to be a hard role in a hard show, but it's like, you're not rolling out on that table for the first time ever anymore. You know, there is a part of you that has created a routine to this. And I think it's like Gina Claire, who just, I think is about to leave as Glinda on Broadway right now. I could be totally making this up, but I swear she's done like, it was something like 1,200 shows or something like that as Glinda. And I was like, that is remarkable. And you can tell she's loved every single one of those shows. She's loved doing it every single time. I think that is something that we forget for performers of how challenging that part is. And the one thing that I had to do, what I did to keep it exciting every time was I was like, there's somebody in the audience tonight that's going to realize this is what they want to do with the rest of their life, that's seeing this show.
So great.
And that is just to perform for that one person. I can't look at them. I don't know who they are, but I know that they're here. is going to motivate me to remember that this is all very fresh. And to performers, like young people who want to do tours and want to in Broadway and do 8 shows a week, make sure you sing things that aren't in the show. Like, that's also what I had to do, is remember that I love singing songs that aren't just Mean Girls. Yes. Like, that was crucial. But that's hard. And people don't really talk about that ever.
No, that's so good. I have a friend who's in Hamilton right now on Broadway.
Gosh, yeah.
And he was like, yeah, there was a certain point where I was like thinking about my grocery list during the Battle of Yorktown.
Yes. Yes.
And it's like, how do you not do that? But it's just a job at a certain point too. So yeah, I love that perspective that you shared of keeping it fresh for those people in the audience.
That's so funny and true though. There are definitely times like I have so many memories of just being like, I don't know where I was. And you can tell in bootlegs but that are like zoomed on people's faces when they're thinking about their grocery list. And we all have them. There's like, at that point when you're doing 8 shows a week, I'd say 2 out of the 8 shows, there's going to be a time where you're thinking about completely something else after you've done 75 shows. But there's also, like, with me, there's a couple of bootlegs I've seen of me where I'm like, oh, I felt sick that night. Because you can, like, see it in my face, like, is she gonna puke? Like, and it's like, yes, I'm thinking about how nauseous I am and thinking about how I'm skrelting my face off and someone gets hurt. Where you just go somewhere else, because you don't worry about those notes anymore that you're hitting. You never worry about the notes anymore. It's all the other stuff you're worrying about at this point. It's hard to keep it fresh. It's very hard.
What's something that you wish people had more empathy about, whether or not in the realm of theater and show business or just in general?
I think when people cancel plans or don't show up or certain things happen, like show up like for another person, not like ghosting. But I think we could just like take a moment to be like, hey, they might have stuff going on. There might be like a really amazing and okay reason to why I'm not hanging out with them right now. Or to be honest, like I'd get angry messages or tweets when I would call out of shows. Like, we came to see you, which is like, thank you so much. I hope that you can see that there's a person behind this performer with like a very real life and dealing with things, and maybe I didn't feel good. And what if I came and performed in this state and then you would have been like, we came to see you and you were bad, you know? Right. And it's like, well, yeah, it's not supposed to be there that night. I think that we could just like, just genuinely in terms of like empathy, just like have more patience with people and like remember that it's so gross and cliche, but we all do it of just this moment because we all are just in our own bodies. You can't say that we don't have moments of thinking the world revolves around us because we are living in our own world. Right. You know, like we are in this, and it's okay.
Everything
like,
is
we
I.
are all in our
Everything
brains.
Is I.
Exactly. Yeah. Everything is I. And so it's just a moment of like taking yourself out of your body for literally like 2 seconds in the day to remember other people are alive and dealing with so much. And it's like, just a moment. Just a moment. And I think like, especially in this world of social media, it's so easy to get angry at people for being a person and fucking up. And it's like, sometimes people really fuck up online and I'm like, all right, idiot. Like, you know, I feel that too. And I'm like, come on. And I'm not talking about the real fuck ups that like are the ones of like, and goodbye forever. Yeah. But just the things of like, oh, they made a weird comment and now I realize that they are a garbage person. It's like, we make weird comments and the person getting angry probably makes a weird comment to their friend all the time. Or you have bad thoughts. You're just not pressing send on them. Right. And showing them to the world. So I think just like be patient with people. And like that doesn't mean you have to be patient forever with the same person. No, take care of yourself and know when someone isn't worth your energy. But it's like sometimes go, hey, it's okay. That's fine. Also, instead of saying life's too short, I say life's too long. Where it's like life's too long to be fucking angry all the time. Yes. You know, it's like, why would I spend most of this long life being pissed off? Like, no. Oh,
I love that.
I'm not gonna.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not that you necessarily want to empathize with the person who's like adding you on social media, but there is also that trying to have the empathy and understanding that like they might be in a bad place too. Yeah. And that was, they were just too quick to hit send. And if they had thought about it for another second, they would have been like, oh yeah, no, she's a person and she deserves a night off.
Yes. And I think that just shows, and that's its whole podcast on its own, just the accessibility that we all have now to rapid thoughts, like, and go. And now it's in the ether and people are seeing it and people are getting affected by this random thought, you know, and sometimes beautifully affected, sometimes negatively. And it's just like, Yeah, it's good to remember both sides of that coin, whether it be a mean comment or not. It's like still a person who probably pressed send too fast.
What's the dream role for you, regardless of gender, age, vocal range? Just like, I want to be that on stage.
I think my current one is King George.
Great.
Which I've been asked a lot to do like full covers of those songs, and I think I'm going to do it, but I was waiting till I was moved in.
I am here for that, by the way.
On Broadway one. Thank you. Yeah. I'm like, why can't it be me, a girl?
Oh, sure.
Like, what's going on? Like, yeah.
I am genuinely surprised that we haven't seen, considering all of the focus of that show on it not mattering what race you are in the role.
Yeah.
I would have thought by now we'd see more gender bending as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's time for a female Latina Jew King George, and that's me.
And I think King George would be really happy to see that.
I think so too. I think he'd be like, wow, finally.
Yes.
what the industry needs, this bitch playing me. Like, that's what everyone's been asking. King George, for sure. One that's widely known between people who have followed me for years. Frollo and Hunchback of Notre Dame. Oh. I would love to play that role female. Like, I don't mind playing, I think I'd play King George as male. Mm-hmm. Just is me. But Frollo, I would love to play that in a female gaze. And then Dot in Sunday in the Park with George.
Oh yeah.
I'd love to play Dot. If Hercules ever comes to Broadway, I'm pitching for Meg.
You're there.
I'm running. What other one was I talking about? Oh, eventually in time, my ultimate dream role would be Diana in Next to Normal. Just so much. Nice. That's my favorite show. Again, you know, like a show that deals with so many issues of mental health and family and these things, and I just feel like I have an appropriate understanding of that and what I would love to take on a role that deals with that. Oh, and an honorable mention, I would love to play Mrs. Lovett right now.
Oh gosh.
I feel like I would shine. I didn't think I could ever play her. I was like, it doesn't feel right when I was like this dainty little 20-year-old, and now I'm like 26 and like and I'm like, I just feel like it's meant for me.
It is my time.
Truly. It's my time. Yeah. All of a sudden I'm in my Mrs. Lovett era. Like, she's coming through.
Yeah. How can people learn more about you and your work?
People can learn more about me. I would say I am mostly on Twitter at Mariah Rose Faith. You can follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is really just kind of like, at this point, more personal and like sharing family and friends, and which people have hated. I've lost a few followers. They're like, where's the Broadway? And I'm like, it's here. But like,
it's in my heart.
Instagram too. Yeah, but the Instagram is definitely more for me. I'm not really sharing when I'm twitching or updates on like industry stuff as much on there. So, but you still can. It's at Mrahstagram, MRAHstagram. I also am on TikTok at Mariah Rose Faith, which is more me just doing bits and thinking I'm funny. And I also share a lot of my life on my Twitch channel, which is also at Mariah Rose Faith. So I think if you want to keep up with me and what I'm doing and updates, I would say Twitter and Twitch are where you're going to get that the most.
Well, I will include those in the show notes, and people can learn more there. Mariah, one last thing.
Yes.
You have given me such a deeper appreciation for the song's ability to tell a story. I think your honesty and vulnerability has made us all braver and better. And please keep being a star.
Thank you. I appreciate hearing that a lot, because it's very easy as a performer to doubt that. And doubt how far it is that your joy in performance is going, and if you're doing anything. So thank you so much for saying that. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, it's a joy.
We did it. You came to the end of another episode of This Should Have Been a Phone Call. So much thanks to Mariah for hanging out and sharing so much of her insight and talent. If this is your first time listening, there are plenty of other episodes of the show. Just go to phonecallpod.com and you could listen to all of them right now. Please give us a follow at phonecallpod wherever you get your social media. And if you're feeling brave, I always appreciate a good review or comment over at Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. It helps the show grow, But it also blocks spam calls about auto warranties, so I definitely appreciate that. We'll see you next time on This Should Have Been a Phone Call. Oh, and one more thing. I love you. You are enough. Keep going.